Hey guys, welcome back. So this page where it displays the user's playlist is done. Now what we're going to do is create the actual playlist page itself. So go back to our text editor and let's create a new file, and we'll save this in the root of our site as playlist.php. Playlist singular, so playlist.php, like that, lowercase p. So click save, and this page is going to be almost identical to our album page. If I show you what it's going to look like, so our album page looks like this, right? So remember this, and our playlist page is going to look like this. Very similar. Obviously we've got some extra things like this that we didn't have, but it's a very similar page. So let's go back to our text editor and let's open up the album.php page. So album.php, and copy all of this and then paste it into the playlist page like that, and close that album.php page down. We don't need that anymore. So this is now what we have for our playlist.php page. So this part can stay the same, this part can stay the same, but album ID is going to be renamed to playlist ID like that, and this part can stay the same too. And instead of creating these, we're going to get rid of this part here and create a playlist object. So playlist equals new playlist, so it's our playlist class, and con is our connection variable to the database. That's the first parameter, and the second parameter is the playlist ID, which we created up top, playlist ID right here. Okay, so playlist ID. Now we have our playlist object, and we're also going to create one object for the owner of the playlist. So owner equals new user, and again the first parameter is a connection variable, and the second parameter is the user's username, and we can get that from our playlist by calling this playlist arrow get owner function like that. Was it get owner? Let me just double check. So get owner like that. This function we created, which returns the owner. Okay, so playlist get owner. And now we have the user object for the person who created the playlist. We want to do this because it might not be the user logged in all the time. We might be on somebody else's playlist, in which case we want to create their object. Alright. So this part can stay the same. This part here will change because it's not going to echo the artwork path from the album anymore. All we're going to do is set the source as assets/images/icons/playlist.png, which is that playlist icon we used here. Alright, that's fine. So right section now, which is the information here. This is going to be, instead of album get title, it's going to be playlist arrow get name, which is the function we created here, get name. Save that. Now this paragraph tag right here we can keep, but we're going to get rid of this link right here because this was linking to the artist, but we're not going to do that anymore because this is going to contain the user's name of the person who created the playlist, and we don't want to link that to anything. So instead of artist get name, we can rename this to playlist arrow get owner like that. And then instead of album get number of songs, we can just rename this to playlist get number of songs. And we haven't wrote that number of songs function yet, but we can do that in a minute. And then finally, just put a button in there, and this can just be delete playlist like that. And the class of this is going to be button, just like that. We already styled that button. So that's fine, keep that. And we'll come back and handle what this actually does when we click it later on, but for now that's fine. Let's go and create this get number of songs function now in the playlist.php class. So public function get number of songs like that, get number of songs, and then all we're going to do is do one query and then return MySQLi numbers. So query equals MySQLi underscore query, pass the connection variable in, which is this arrow con like that, which we get from up here, and then the query itself is just going to be select song ID from playlist songs, which is the table we created for our playlist songs, where playlist ID equals, and it's just going to be the ID of this playlist, which is this arrow ID, which is up here. Okay, and all we need to do is just return MySQLi underscore num underscore rows, and in parentheses just put this query like that. Okay, so that's good now. Go back to playlist.php and then scroll down, and this is eventually going to be playlist get song IDs, but just to make sure there are no errors, I'm just going to comment that out for now and just set it to an empty array, which means none of this will execute because this is looping over every single item in this array, but we've just set it to a blank array right now. And we just want to see that there's no errors. So go back to playlist.php, so click on one of these, and you'll see we do get some errors, so it's good to sort those out now. Illegal string offset. So illegal string offset means we're passing in a string instead of an array. So this data part right here apparently is a string. So let's go back to playlist.php, and I think I'm probably passing the ID instead of the data. And that's right, yeah, so I'm passing in the ID up here. But if you remember, in the playlist.php, I've shown you that you can pass in the MySQL data instead and use it like this, instead of using queries in each of these functions. So that means that we're supposed to pass in MySQL data in here instead. So we could rewrite this so that it uses an ID instead, and that would mean we have to go through all of these functions and execute queries to get the data. Or it'd be nice to show you another way of doing this, and that would be to make it so that we can pass either an ID or the MySQL data into it. So the real simple way of doing that, we can just say if not is underscore array like this, and inside there just put data. And what this is saying is if the data that was passed in is not an array, that means they've passed in an ID. So you can say data is an ID string like that. We can just execute the query ourselves. So we can say query equals MySQLi underscore query. And inside there, pass in our connection variable, which at this point is here. So just con like that. And the query can just be select all from playlist where ID equals, and in there we can just use data like that in single quotes. And then we can just set data equal to MySQLi underscore fetch underscore array like that. And inside there just put our query. And that will mean by the time it gets to here, we know that data is definitely an array. Because if at first data is an ID, we'll convert it into an array that contains the results. And if it already is an array, we know it's already MySQL results, so we can just go ahead and use it. So let's refresh the page, and this error should go away now, which it does. So here we've created our playlist object using an ID, but if I go back to your music page, you'll see that this still works, even though in this instance we're using the MySQL data to create the object. So here we pass in the MySQL data to our playlist object and create an object that way, whereas on the playlist itself we pass in the ID, but we still get the same result.